Hello and welcome to a tutorial about how to do functions in Python and what functions are and why they're so incredibly helpful. The first thing you're going to want to do is go to REPL.it. If you've been following along with these, you should know by now. And you just want to create a new Python, and this is going to be probably your name and something like functions. Put your name, functions there. That's what you're going to want to do. Create a REPL, and it will create and give you the nice little blank thing that we've seen. So first off, do me a favor, just first off, actually you're doing yourself the favor, and import sys. Sys is a module that does a lot. It does a lot of things for Python. It imports a lot of really useful tools into Python, and the biggest tool that it imports that we're going to use is how to do inputs, how to get the computer to read what people are putting into the down here and do logic with that. Very important for computers to be able to accept inputs and read inputs and do logic with inputs. It's crazy that we've gotten this far into this class without using that yet. In my Java class, we use that like week 2, but in Python, we put that off until now. So just import sys and then just leave that on line 1. But now let me talk to you about functions. Functions are the next step up. And so remember, variables are your building blocks of computer programming. And then you can use variables to build conditional branches and loops. Loops are kind of a special type of conditional branch that just runs multiple times. And then this is the next step above that. So variables build conditional branches and loops, and then you use conditional branches and loops to build functions. And how functions work is basically you're just saving your program to a name. And you're just saving it as a name, and then people can run your list of commands, your function, without having to type out all the commands again. You just say run this function. So it allows you to use functions over and over and over again without having to write code over and over and over again. So with that said, there are 3 types of a function, or 3 parts of a function. You don't have to type this part out, but I'm typing on the screen so you can follow along. 3 parts of a function. The first part is the name. Very, very, very important. I cannot call to you unless I know your name. I can yell, hey, you, and see if you look at me and then point at you, which I've actually had to do a few times early on in classes where I don't know names yet. But yeah, you want a name. And so you want to say, this is the name. And then you have what are called parameters. Parameters are very important. Parameters are those variables. They are variables that the function needs in order to run. It's the information the function needs in order to run. That's what a parameter is. So usually they're supplied from somewhere outside of the program. One of the reasons we've imported sys is because because that's outside of the program. We've imported sys so we can collect user input, use user input to save as parameters, which we're going to do on the last 2 assignments. So you need parameters. Usually those appear in parentheses, which I'll show you. And then you need your commands or your algorithms or whatever you want to call them. You need the actual code that's going to run. So that's what you need. Those are the 3 parts of a function. Screenshot this, save it, because that's very important. It's going to be on the quiz. Very important to know. You need a name, you need parameters, and then you need the commands. What this looks like in actual programming, what this looks like is, first off, in Python, you type DEF. DEF is short for define. Meaning you are going to define or name a function. You're going to define this. You're going to give it a name. So right now, I'm going to give you a small example, and then we'll delete it and do the 4 assignments together that help you kind of familiarize yourselves with functions. I'm going to give you a small example. And we're just going to say, we're going to call this a hello world. We're going to go back to hello world, even though we've gone quite a ways from hello world. We're just going to go back to hello world, and the parameter is going to be name. So the name of the function is hello world, and the parameter is name. Now let me show you kind of why that's important. So then we are going to, this function is just going to have 1 line. There's just going to be 1 command. And it's going to be a print command, and we're just going to say print hi, and then we're going to use some concatenation to name. So there we have it. Now watch what happens when I run this program. Nothing. We didn't get an error, so we didn't do anything wrong. We didn't get any errors. We didn't get any red font down here in the console. We got nothing. That's because we have merely defined it. We have named it, but we have not called its name yet. So that's very important to understand. We have named it, but we have not called its name yet. Your name might be Tiffany, but I have not called to you. You have not turned and paid attention to me unless I yell Tiffany, unless I call Tiffany. So in functions, you name them and then you call them. So here is how you call the function. Calling the function is meaning getting it to run, getting it to go. And in Python, it's really simple. That's why people like Python. It's very simple. All you do is you just write the name of the function again. So this is like calling out, hey, hello world, hey you, look at me, look at me. And then in parentheses, you put the value that you want to use for the variable. So I don't put name again. I put somebody's name. And since I just said Tiffany, then I'll write Tiffany. Now watch, and it will say, hi, Tiffany. Do you see that? Now, as I said, the reason why people like functions and why functions are so cool is I can now use it over and over and over again without having to rewrite lines 3 and 4. So now I can do hello world again, but this time I'll write my name, right? And then I'll use it again. And this time I'll write my wife's name. And I'll use it again. And this time I'll write Ben. And in fact, I'll just do one more so you can, really drive the point home. This time I'll write Lisa. And now when I run it, it'll say, hi, Tiffany, hi, Kevin, hi, Allison, hi, Ben, hi, Lisa. You see that? So that is how functions work in a nutshell. You just put the variable, when you define it, you put the variable to use or the variable required to run it. And then when you call it, in parentheses, you actually define the variable. And so let's do the same thing with an age. Let's say, I'm just going to leave the name there, but we're going to change the variable to an age. And this time it's going to say, I am, and then we'll use some wonderful concatenation, age, typo there, years old. There we go. And then down here, down here, we're going to have to put age in a string since Python doesn't like to concatenate with strings. So we'll have to define these ages as strings. You can actually type ages too. So we'll put some old people in there too. So there you go. I'm 19 years old, 10 years old, 11. So you see that? So we just supplied the value to be saved as age, the value to run on as age. Isn't that cool? So with that said, let's get a little bit deeper with these, and so I can show you some other cool things. If you are watching this for my class, there were 4 sort of assignments that I wanted you to do. I have them right here. One is to recycle the moon weight assignment from several assignments ago. The second is different than that. I'm actually going to rewrite the second one, and I'll talk you through that. The third is to create a new function that asks how many points they got on assignment, and then tells them whether they passed or failed. And the fourth is to write a function that asks someone how much money they've spent or gained and adds or subtracts it from a total. So let's do the first one here. The first is that wonderful moon weight assignment. If you remember, you weigh about 16% on the moon as you weigh on Earth, and so that program looks something like this. We said we defined what Earth weight was, right? And then we defined what moon weight was and its Earth weight times 0.16. Now, in that old assignment from a long time ago, we used a loop. If you want to go back and grab that loop, if you still have that assignment, you want to copy and paste that over here, great, go you. Well, I'm not going to bother with the loop, and if you're following along, you don't need to bother with the loop as well. So now, though, what we want to do is turn that into a function. So once again, we write define, and we'll define it as something like calculate moon weight, calc moon weight, and then the parameter is going to be Earth weight, because that's what we want people to define. So there we have it. And then moon weight equals Earth weight times 0.16, and then we're just going to print it out. and we're going to say print moon. Well, let's do this. We'll print your moon weight is, and then just to dodge that dumb conversion thing where we have to convert numbers to strings, on the next line, we'll just put moon weight. So in fact, we'll replace the space with a colon. So now, once again, when I run it, didn't like something I did. What did it not like that I did? Oh, I forgot the colon there. Don't forget your colon. Whenever you're making a new branch of code, there you go. Notice nothing happened. Why? Stop and ask yourself why. It's because we defined it, we named it, but we have not called it by name yet. So we need to call it by name. So how we do that again is we just retype the name. We say, hey, calc moon weight, we need you. And earth weight is going to be my earth weight, which is 150. And there you go. Your moon weight is 24 pounds, which is 150 times 0.16. So isn't that cool? So once again, I could go down and we could do calc moon weight with 90. We could do calc moon weight with 1005. We could do calc moon weight, and we wouldn't have to rewrite lines 3 through 6. All we have to do is just type the name of the function and then define the parameter, define the variable, and they're good. So, so that first one's pretty easy. The second one then is, I told you I rewrote it. I actually decided we were going to do a loan payment. And I actually already have the code right here, but I'll talk you through it. So there's the code if you want to pause and look at the code right there. So the difference between this one and this assignment right up here, the difference between moon weight and loan payment is now we actually have two parameters. That's something you need to know, is that a function can have 40 parameters. It can have thousands of parameters. In fact, when you use functions to loop through things and arrays and things like that, oh man, you can have millions. There are functions on Amazon's website, I'm sure, and Google's websites that have millions of parameters. You can have as many parameters as you want, just so long as they're all defined. But this time we just have two. And we have the balance. That's one of our parameters. So we have a variable called balance, and we have a variable called payment. So we said the month equals 0, and then we created a loop because we are going to pretend we're paying off this loan over time. So we're going to start at 0 month, which is whatever this month is, and then while the balance is greater than 0. So we're paying off a loan. So let's say you borrowed $1,500, which we defined down here. $1,500, and while that balance is above 0, meaning while we still owe money on that, then balance equals the balance minus whatever we said the payment was. And then obviously the month goes up by 1. It increments. They call that incrementing a variable. It increments every single month, and then we print the month and the balance. So once again, we can say, okay, what if I owe $1,000 and I pay $25 a month off? We're going to run it. It's going to take us 40 months to pay off. That's, of course, I'm not charging interest here. So isn't that cool? So 40 months to pay off. 39th month, I'm going to owe $25. 38th month, I'm going to owe $50. So we can then run it with 2,000. And let's say we're going to pay $143 a month off of it. There you go. The 14 months in, it'll be -2. The person will owe us $2 back that we overpaid them. So yeah, so the only difference here, you have two parameters. Notice they're not defined. The variables are not defined here. You can if you want, but you're kind of overriding them. In fact, that's bad practice. Don't do that. And then loan payment, balance is 2,000. Payment is 143. So that's the second assignment. Now we're gonna use user input, which is super fun. That's why, remember, clear up here at line 1, we imported sys because sys allows us to read what the user is writing and do logic off that. So follow along with me on this second one. This one is a simple pass-fail. So the user is going to give you, they're going to give you how many points they got on that assignment, and the computer is going to tell them whether they passed or failed. I am going to assume, you can assume whatever, I don't really care, but I'm going to assume 70% is passing and anything less is failing. That's what I'm going to assume. So we're going to define a function. I'm going to name it pass-fail. I'm going to say a pass-fail function, and our parameter is going to be, think about it before I tell you, think about what should the parameter be. What do we need from the user to decide if we're going to pass or fail? We need the grade. Don't forget your colon there. So we need their grade. So then how the function is going to work is we're going to write a simple conditional branch. If grade is greater than or equal to 70, we're going to print, yay, you passed. And then else, we'll just say else. Remember with else branches, we don't need conditions. We're going to say else, print, boo. Oh, boo, you failed, right? So there we go. That's all we need for the function. But we need to define the grade, right? So, so we need to do that. We're going to do that outside of the function. So once again, no indentation, right? Outside of the function, now we need to get what the grade is. And how we're going to do that is we're going to print what grade did you get, right? And then we're going to use the sys module. What that looks like, and let me bounce over to my cheat sheet just so I make sure I get it right, is this right here, line 27 right here. We're creating a new variable named answer, meaning that's their answer. You can name it user answer too. And then let me put it back over here for you. So we defined a new variable meaning answer, and it's the integer. Int means the integer, and then this is just a fancy way of saying whatever they typed in. So sys.stdin .readline just is a fancy way in the sys module for saying this is what they typed in. This is something they typed in. By the way, this right here is a parameter of the sys module. It's a parameter that's defined in the sys module. Now we're just calling out to it. Now we're saying we need you. We need you to read what they wrote and save what they wrote as an integer to the answer. And then the last thing we want to do, very last thing in this one, is we want to run pass fail. Remember, we want to yell out to it, hey, pass fail, we need you, pay attention. And then we're going to write answer. The reason we write answer is because we want the value of answer to also be the value of grade right up here. And so what we just did is we said run pass fail, but the answer, the value we have saved to this answer variable, plug that in for the grade variable. So there's some logic going on here. User's going to type something, then that's going to be saved to a variable called answer, and then we're going to take that value from answer and also make it the value of grade. So now we run it. It says down here, what grade did you get? We're going to say 55, and it's going to tell us, boo, you're a failure. Clear it. I'm going to run it again just to kind of show you. Now we're going to write 78. It's going to say, yay, you passed. So, yeah, getting a little bit more complicated. The main thing is this line right here. Is int sys.standin.readline with all the parentheses in there. I would recommend once you get that, do what I did earlier, copy and paste it, just copy, paste, copy, paste. So that's what you're going to want to do. Okay, now for the hard one. Are you ready for the hard one? Now we're going to go back to banking. We already did a simple loan payment one right up here. Now we're going to keep track of your bank account balance. Now we're going to write a bank. We're going to turn our computer into a bank, and it's going to keep track of our money. So we're going to name a variable called bank account. So go ahead and do that. Remember, if you get stuck behind, then pause this video and catch up. And this one, what we want is we want the user to tell us how much money they have, and then whether or not they spent money or got money, and how much. So there's kind of three things we need here. And so two of those are going to be parameters. Two of those are going to be supplied by the user. A third is going to be supplied by the user, but in the actual function itself. So we need to know how much they started with, which we're just going to call balance. And we need to know the amount. However, I think we can write the amount actually in the function. So we really only need one parameter, and that's the balance. And then we are going to ask them a few things. We're going to ask them How much money do you have? But we need that before the function runs. So we're not going to ask that yet. We're not going to ask that quite yet. We're going to ask that outside of the function. So we're gonna leave that out and ask it later. Right now we're just naming the function. We're not running it yet. But the next thing we need to know is if they spent money or if they got money. So there's a trick around this, and here's what we're going to do. We're going to say enter 1 if you spent money. Enter 2 if you got money. There we go. Then we're going to use this line up here, and we can leave it as answer because this function already here is already run. But it's generally not a good idea when you're dealing with a lot of functions. And so instead, we're just going to name this as something like type. We'll name it. No, type is a reserved word. See how it's green? That's a reserved word, so I can't use that. We're just going to name it as bank type, maybe. And that equals int sys.standin. Remember I said you would just need this so you can copy and paste up there. You can retype it. Then we are going to ask the user. We're going to say how much money. We're just going to say how much money. And then we're going to say amount equals, once again, int.sys.standin.readline, and bam. So now they have given us 2 of our variables, and then balance, which they have not defined yet, is going to equal balance, whatever balance was. We have to create a conditional branch, don't we? So we're going to say if bank type equals 1, then balance equals balance minus, because they spent money, so it's going to be whatever your bank account balance was minus the amount they gave you. There you go. And then else, it's technically else bank type equals 2, and we actually made a mistake right there. It's a double equals. But remember, we don't need a condition if it's else. We're just going to assume it's a 2. If they type a 10 or if they type a negative number, then the computer's going to assume it was income. There are ways to program around that, but not for this assignment. Balance is going to equal balance plus the amount, right? Because we're adding money to the amount they have. And that is the function. We have defined the function. We haven't run it yet, but before we run it, we need to do something. What do we need to do? We need to get them to tell us what the balance is. So now outside of the function, we're not indented at all. We are going to print how much money do you currently have? How much money do you have? And then once again, whatever they have, we're going to save to a variable. So we're going to save it to the balance variable. Well, we can't actually do that. That makes it hard. We're going to save it to, we're just going to call it money equals int.sys.standin.readline. Bam. So there we go. They told us how much money they have. And now we are going to run our function up here. We're going to say bank account. And the balance is going to be however much money they told us. And now we should be able to run it. And it says, oh, we have to do this again. We failed that because we were less than 70. Now we're on this function. How much money do you have? And I'm going to say $567. We're going to say I got more money, and we're going to say Grandma sent me $100, and it should tell me I have. So I forgot to do something. I forgot to print out the balance in the function. So go back up here to the function, but make sure you're still inside the function with your indenting. And we're going to print you now have. And then underneath that, we'll print the new balance. So there we go. We just forgot to print it out. That's why it ended there. So now we have to go through the other one first. We failed again. Okay, 567. We got money. And we got $100 from Grandma, so now we have $667. So kind of a long tutorial, but I want some more complicated stuff in there to teach you guys. If you want to pause, right there is the 4th one. So if you need that, pause it right there. And then the 3rd one is right there. So if you want to pause the screen so you could make sure you typed everything correctly. And then the second one is here. There it is. If you want to pause the screen. And then the first one with the import sys at the top is right there. So let me know if you get stuck or have any questions. Good luck out there. Hopefully this was enlightening for you and fun.